Hello and welcome back to Wire to Wire Sports. It's been a long time since we've seen you last, but we're back with a great list of debate topics. As always, I'm Jason O'Neill. This is my man Aubrey Gray.
How you doing?
We're live from Santa Barbara, California. We're going to run down a recap of the high school division, college, and of course the pros. Let's go straight in. So first up, high school ball. When we last saw y'all, it was the end of the AAU season. Well now, first week of April, we've actually run through the entire high school basketball season. Aubrey, who are some of the top teams who won that quote-unquote mythical national championship?
This year's mythical national championship went to Oak Hill Academy, who was 44-0. They didn't participate in the NHIS, which was won by Finlay Prep, who finished 2. Possibly the most entertaining game of the year, though, was Tilton School versus Brewster Academy. That game featured about 12 Division I guys, including Nerlens Noel, Mitch McGarry, and a slew of others. So that high school this year was very entertaining and it was a very good year. The big note was the reclassification of Nerlens Noel, who I just spoke about. He'll be attending, well, we'll hear this week where he's going to be going to school, but he's actually reclassified to the class of 2012. So he's going to be doing the same thing that basically Andre Drummond did last season, and he's going to be entering college as a freshman next fall. So look out for that. That was a very big thing on the high school front.
So sticking with that theme, April 11th is right around the corner. So you're going to have Nerlens Noel, Shabazz Muhammad, and the kid Bennett from Canada, who are all going to be announcing their decision of where they're going to be going this coming year on Wednesday the 11th. So what do you think about those kids and where they might end up heading?
Jason, I think Nerlens Noel is honestly headed to Kentucky. Shabazz Muhammad, there's been talks about Ben Howland in UCLA, but I just don't believe that talk. I believe we're going to see Shabazz Muhammad go on and commit to Kentucky. And third, Anthony Bennett, Kentucky.
Oof. So you're saying all three of these top prize recruits are going to go to Kentucky?
Yes, that's what I believe, and I have inside knowledge. I can't give a source up, but that's what I'm hearing, that because of the flights of Anthony Davis, Terrence Jones, possibly Doran Lamb, and Teague, that they will replenish their roster with a slew of All-Americans and get back to that national championship game next season. Between Shabazz Muhammad and Nerlens Noel for the #1 spot, ESPN actually moved Nerlens Noel to the #1 spot over Shabazz Muhammad because of his tenacity to eliminate shots, similar to Anthony Davis. So that's the only reason Nerlens Noel gets ranked ahead of Shabazz Muhammad at this stage, because of the fact that he's a master eliminator at this point in his career, still developing offensively, but definitely Shabazz Muhammad is the total package. And as they spoke about at the All-American game, which Nerlens Noel wasn't able to play in because of the reclassification, Shabazz Muhammad was the only guy there who was NBA ready.
Next up on the college level, there were a lot of big stories this year. Kentucky obviously just won the national championship. There was the whole Sullinger and Jones from Kentucky coming back, and there actually being some sophomores who had some real kind of a highlight superstar experience. But one of the biggest stories to us was the dismantling of the Big East Conference, and the fact that we just saw what kind of will be the last Big East Conference tournament as we know it, and the fact that Syracuse, Pitt, and West Virginia will all be leaving the conference, either for the ACC or Big 12. And it's really just something that we feel strongly about. Aubrey, how do you feel about the Big East Conference being dismantled and all these teams moving for possibly football reasons?
Jay, what I think it comes down to is ethical behavior beyond money. And that seems to be a problem with the NC2A.
So for me personally, the Big East Conference has always had a kind of a special place in my heart. I've always kind of considered it elite level college basketball. I mean, you have obviously the pro game being one level of elite, but as far as the college basketball went, I always thought that there was tiers and sections from the ACC, and I always felt, at least personally, that the Big East was that kind of elite level conference. So to hear that, they're not going to have kind of the same rivalries, and that possibly more schools may go. I remember back when this news broke, there was reports that UConn may be leaving as well. So to kind of hear that, it really does hurt me personally, because I know personally this is not for basketball reasons. This isn't for educational reasons. This is really for money, and the money that can be generated by joining a football conference. And if they can get all these power football schools together, eventually they'll be able to eliminate the BCS and have some sort of 6-team, not even allow any, kind of mid-majors in, just the 6 teams, probably just allow those guys to have a 4-team tournament, and that's essentially what I think they're going to be looking at. But that's all based on money. They're doing all these decisions based on money, and the money that can be generated from football, versus TCU may be joining the Big East, and you're going to have people flying from UConn to TCU to play a volleyball game and things of that nature. So again, we look at the hypocrisy of the NCAA and the fact that they're making these decisions not to, help student athletes, not to grow their brand. It's specifically for money and the money that's generated by football.
Right. Jason, just to elaborate on what you're saying, I definitely agree in the fact that Pittsburgh, the tradition with them, Syracuse, these schools have been foundational to the conference. So I don't know how, even West Virginia, these teams are a foundational movement, and the best conference in America is the Big East. So now that's going to actually be taking a hit and be possibly second now to the ACC. So that's another thing that people are going to have to just accept because of money. And traditionalists like us really don't want to accept it. So the NCAA, please do some work on what you're making your student athletes do, requirements, different stipends. There's a lot of different situations that need to be amended by the NC2A, and definitely this is one of them with the whole BCS and the basketball situation.
And to the NCAA's credit, I heard Dr. Mark Emmert, the president of the NCAA, on Mike and Mike recently, actually say that some of the rules that were kind of, like we were talking about last time, like the cream cheese rule, the fact that they're able to get bagels and certain breakfast snacks, but not, any kind of jam or jelly, and we were kind of laughing about that last time. But Dr. Mark Emmert has said that those are things that they don't need to be focusing on, and they are going to be more focusing on benefits. Even though sometimes those benefits might be something small, like getting $20 to $100 to take your girlfriend out. So there's still going to be a disconnect, but I do believe at least they are moving in the right direction. And just last comment on the Big East, those 3 teams that the Big East are losing, those are all top tier coaches. You're talking about Jim Boeheim, Jamie Dixon, and Bob Huggins, all leaving the conference in one mass exodus. Obviously your brand is not going to be as good as it was before. Last big stories from the college season, and they actually stay in the Big East. Syracuse and UConn have both had major violations or sanctions. UConn's been banned from next year's NCAA tournament. Syracuse has been sanctioned due to some irregularities in their handling of the NCAA drug policy. Aubrey, these are pretty big deals. How do you view those situations?
Well, the impropriety with Syracuse really hurts because, of course, that's one of my favorite programs and favorite coaches in Jim Boeheim. For him to say that he had no knowledge of what was going on in his program with regards to the grades of these kids, and not only grades, but also drug policies, that's irreprehensible. So, for him to do that, it hurts. The other situation with Calhoun is a little bit different, and it's been going on for some time. So these things will be rectified, and they will pay their penalty very severely. It's unfortunate because of the breakdown of the Big East, but it has to be done. We've got to clean basketball up, and it all starts with these coaches that have been foundational to the ethic of the game.
So finally, of course, we always finish up with the NBA game and the pro level. Last time we spoke, there was still a lockout going on, and we weren't sure how much of a season that we were going to get. Well, they set up the lockout, and the season came hard and fast. In about, a matter of 3 months, they fit pretty much all of the games in. If you look at just from January, February, March, normally by the second, month of the season, they're really trying to get acclimated to the kind of grind and everything. And at this point, the second month of the season, they really only had 1 full month left in the season. So this season really was a sprint to the finish line, much more than others. We're already here at the end. Aubrey, was there anything that surprised you about this NBA season? Or what do you think were some of the top stories?
One of the top stories of this year, to me, was the media blowing the Jeremy Lin story up to a point where it didn't really need to be. A kid from Palo Alto makes it to the pros, beats Mater Dei in 2006 for a state championship, went to Harvard, finally got his chance in the league. A great story, but not the story. I think it was really overblown, unfortunately, in an NBA season that was a little, staggered and short, and in a down news cycle things like this come to fruition and come to light. So not a slight on a Bay Area kid, which I am, not at all. But let's focus on some of the more extreme topics that are really going on inside the game.
Yeah, so an example of things that are more tangible that I think are bigger kind of newsworthy items in the NBA versus a Jeremy Lin, who like Aubrey said was probably just the benefit of a down news cycle when there was really nothing else going on at that time. I would think that, for instance, the Western Conference has traditionally been the power conference. If you look, one of my favorite stats is that only 3 teams out of the West have been to the NBA Finals since Michael Jordan retired. You got the Lakers, the Spurs, and now Dallas has been twice. But other than that, it's really been the Lakers and the Spurs. There's been a power conference. This year, it's completely wide open, from OKC to even maybe San Antonio or Memphis, things like that. The West is really, wide open this year, and I think that's really been the biggest story of this NBA season. The fact that the West is wide open, as the Heat have really taken a backseat and more of a side column story or something to that effect. So, staying with that theme, the playoffs are right around the corner. They'll be starting up in about 2 weeks now. Aubrey, who would you consider the top 4 teams in the West and one of the most wide open West we've seen in a long time?
Jay, off top, my 4 teams in the West Coast Conference: number 1, Oklahoma City; number 2, the Lakers. Because of the paradigm shift in younger, more physical and just quicker players, it's just a change in time. That's what happens. So number 2 is the Lakers, unfortunately. Number 3 right now is the Spurs. And number 4, Memphis. I'm going to take the Grizzlies at 4. Memphis or Dallas, okay? It could be an either-or situation, but right now, number 1, I've got Oklahoma City, just a touch over the Lakers.
And I would agree that those are probably going to be the 4 teams that you're going to see win first-round series. I think that you're going to see Oklahoma City obviously breeze through their first-round series, whoever, even if Dallas ends up in that spot. If Dallas ends up in the 8, which they currently are, obviously I think Oklahoma City's going to breeze through them no problem. So I do think Oklahoma City is going to win their first-round matchup. Obviously, I'm a Laker fan, so I do think that the Lakers are going to win at least their first-round matchup, although I don't have a lot of faith that they're going to go much further than that. And then absolutely San Antonio and Memphis right now is probably the most intriguing. They sit in the 4 spot. So if they end up matching up with first the Clippers, and then Oklahoma City, I give them great opportunities to win both of those series. And if you got Memphis in the Western Conference Finals, we're really as wide open as we've ever been. So moving over to the Eastern Conference, there's almost no real reason to go to a top 4 because we all know who the Eastern Conference Finals is going to be. The Eastern Conference Finals has been set pretty much since last year's Eastern Conference Finals. It's more than likely going to be the Bulls and the Heat. So Aubrey, the real question is, do the Bulls have any chance of beating the Heat this year?
No, I don't believe they do. Derrick Rose has missed 13 games now with the groin. Before it was a back injury. So now we really don't know what's going on with Derrick Rose, who's the leader and obviously the pinnacle of that team. So that leaves them with, basically the head cut off the body situation. So I don't see them at all really contending this year. I see Miami pretty much skating into the final and then matching up very good with a West Coast opponent.
Yeah, I actually agree with that. It's going to be very difficult for anybody to challenge either the Bulls or the Heat. And when it comes down to the individual matchup, I do think that the Bulls play great defense. They can really give the Heat problems. But part of it, the NBA, is just matchups. And LeBron feels so comfortable against Luol Deng. Last year when they faced it was a 5-game series, and almost all the 5 games ended with LeBron going 1-4 flat against Luol Deng and just being like, everybody get out of the way, I'm going to eat this guy's lunch. And I don't think that they're really going to have any answer for that this year that they didn't last year. The addition of Rip Hamilton really hasn't panned out for them. I really think that you're going to end up seeing a finals with the Miami Heat in it coming out of the East.
So Jay, give me your Western Conference Finals and who you think is going to be in that final matchup to represent the West.
So moving back to the West, I would definitely say that OKC, the way they played this year, deserves a spot in that last 2. They deserve to be considered probably the favorite to go to the Western Conference Finals. However, what I've seen in basketball history is that you have to lose before you win. It's just what everybody's had to go through, unless your name is Michael Jordan or Larry Bird, or Magic Johnson or Larry Bird, because they just came out and they just went out at everything. But Michael Jordan lost, Isaiah Thomas lost, the Bad Boy Pistons lost. The Spurs, they lost for years with David Robinson in that same team before they got over the hump in '99. So I believe that you have to lose before you win. OKC hasn't done enough of that losing. Dallas lost recently. So I'm going with the Spurs and Oklahoma City in the Western Conference Finals, and the Spurs beating Oklahoma City to get back to the finals, where they would meet the Miami Heat and get swept by LeBron, and LeBron would have true vindication of the team that beat him in his first NBA Finals and swept him, and sweeping them to get his first NBA championship. So that's our list of debate topics for today. Until next time, we hope to get back at you a little sooner than we did this last time. We got a great already start of debate topics for the next time. We got the AAU season, and the Oakland Soldiers as the #1 team going into the AAU season. We'll be able to recap the NBA playoffs and everything that does end up happening in the finals. And of course, anything else that pops up along the way. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jason O'Neill with my man Aubrey Gray. Y'all have a great one, and we'll see you next time.
I might give away $1 million. I think I might give away a brand new truck. Cause I feel good, yeah I feel good. Cause I feel good, hey, I think I might take you on a shopping spree. When the club, goddamn, all drinks on me.